What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas. Stu is out on assignment. He is currently interviewing Dr. Patrick Moore, the former founder of Greenpeace, who has since done a complete 180 and is actually standing up against Greenpeace. Stu is actually in the process of interviewing him right now, so we're going to give him the night off. So I'm going to rock a solo show. I've got one article to cover and then a really interesting conversation with Paul Graham, who you guys have heard a few times on this podcast. But before we get to my conversation with Paul, I'd be remiss if I didn't cover one menu item. Breaking news: the Biden administration is preparing to ban over half of all gas furnaces and will change how millions heat their homes. Of course, Stu's got the doom and gloom stuff, so I will cover that. Markets were actually closed today as well, so I mean, it's really nothing. That's again partly why we'll talk to Paul here in a bit, guys. But before we do all of that, remember, guys, this story and this conversation that you are about to hear is brought to you by the world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com, the best place for all of your energy news. Stu, who's, again, out on assignment, does a great job of curating that website to make sure it's up to date on all of the different energy news. You can hit us at dashboard.energynewsbeat.com for all of your data and energy news combo. You can email us questions at energynewsbeat.com. We love hearing from you guys. But let's go in here to the first story, and really the only story of the day. I'll reiterate the headline: breaking news: the Biden administration is preparing to ban over half of all gas furnaces and change how millions heat their homes. This is a really interesting new proposal out of the Department of Energy. They've proposed some new regulations that are really tackling what is known as the Annual Fuel Utilization Efficiency mark, which is more commonly known as the AFUE. Basically, what they're going to require is that this AFUE, which is, again, the Annual Fuel Utilization Efficiency on all furnaces, must be 95% by 2029, meaning all manufacturers would be allowed to only sell those furnaces that convert at least 90% of the fuel into heat within 6 years. To give you guys an idea, the current market standard for that AFUE number on a residential furnace is around 80%. So, I mean, obviously we need to increase and we need to keep moving towards being more efficient. But this is an absolutely staggering jump because you have to dive into the numbers here. And remember, we always talk about second order effects. Great. Yes, we want to be more fuel efficient. We want to be more energy efficient. We want to use less energy and get more out of it. All for that. But what are the second order effects? To give you guys an idea, these new proposals would affect about 60% of all residential furnaces currently available on the market and millions of furnaces in already homes. Now, there's still, because this proposal is so fresh, people are still working on how much money, but it's going to be in the thousands. You've got Richard Meyer, who's the vice president of the Energy Market Analysis and Standards for the American Gas Association. His quote was, "There's some really technical reasons why this is such a concerning rule. It has to do with the ability for consumers to be in compliance with the new efficiency standard. They're going to have to, in many cases, install new equipment to exhaust gas out of their home. So they're not really going to become, this isn't fighting climate change. Remember this. So we're not saving gas, people. They're going to, we're going to pump the gas out of the home. So we're just going to put it in the atmosphere. Great. So we're not solving climate change, but whatever. We're installing new rules. Thank you, Biden. Let's get back to the quote. These higher efficiency units are so-called condensating units. A lot of these consumers, which have them in their homes, but most consumers don't. So this rule would, so the quote goes on, so this rule would require additional retrofits for a lot of customers, and those retrofits, and here's the kicker, can be extremely cost prohibitive. As Stu always says, the consumer takes it in the drive-through. That's what these rules are about. This is all about getting climate change down, because we're just venting this outside now. What is this? This is some roundabout kickback to the manufacturing industry, which, hey, I'm all for if the kickbacks end up in my book, but in this case, they don't. Again, I mostly tease. The issue, again, with this is much like California is doing with the EV market. You can't switch so quickly. You have to understand the second order effects. We covered yesterday on our show that there's only one EV charging station for every 5 gas stations, and almost none of them are located along major highways. That has to change if you're going to do a massive EV rollout. The issue is we're expanding and making regulations about the number of EV sales without thinking, where are we going to charge these things at? And again, all of the market seems to be flocking to Tesla. So if you like monopolies, yay, we love charging stations. At least with gas stations, you've got multiple different players on the market. So I get a little digress on that topic. But the point of the matter is, guys, regulations are good. Crazy regulations that come in and don't understand second order effects are bad. And this, in my opinion, is a rule that doesn't necessarily pass the sniff test. And if you're going to say it's going to cost, but we don't have enough money for it. The porculus bill, as Stu would call it, doesn't even include money for this. So that's the funny part. This isn't included in the trillions of dollars that they're sending, or the $1 trillion budget they've got, the billions we're sending to Ukraine, the hundreds of billions going to the Defense Department. But I guarantee there's nothing in there to actually do this conversion. And remember, what's the kicker? In many cases, they're going to have to install equipment to get gas out of their homes. It's a crime, guys. It's a crime. This isn't even fighting climate change. So, I mean, again, the consumer takes in the drive-through. I could talk all night about this. Markets were closed today. So, I mean, pretty simple on that standpoint. We're not really, nothing to really talk about. Oil sits at $71.46. Stu's not here to scare us for what's happening. So I will just say that, again, as the U.S. economy goes, so will oil prices. So it'd be interesting to see how the market opens. I think there is some bullish sentiment. So as you listen to this on Tuesday, you will most likely, in my opinion, be seeing a little bit of an uptick in the markets. But again, we will see. I want to kind of turn it over now and tee up a conversation with Paul Graham. We had an excellent conversation really regarding, as I've been teasing in my intro, this new subscription that we're rolling out. Energy Newsbeat is, as you know, our market website. Some pretty incredible stuff going on with it right now. And we really wanted to sit down and have a conversation designed around, okay, where's this, what are we thinking about this subscription? Where's it going? What that might look like, and let you guys, the loyal podcast listeners, kind of in on a little detail that we'll be rolling out in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to that conversation, guys. What's up, guys? Michael here, sitting with my favorite consigliere, Paul Graham. This is somebody who is known to the podcast a little bit. We've brought him on for his real estate expertise, but really, Paul works in the background here at Sandstone doing a lot of interesting stuff. And one of those has been really helping and pushing our digital product strategy and digital product go-to-market strategy specifically, because one of the things that we run, as you guys know, is energynewsbeat.com. For better or worse, it is a product. And the goal is to at one point see that in the hands of everybody. And trust me, we've got plans that go far beyond a simple news website, even though Stu has built this into an absolute machine. I mean, last I checked, we're doing 20 to 30,000 page views a day, all thanks to you guys, the listeners, being our core subscribers. So we really appreciate it. But really, there's so much that there's so much left and meat on the bone. If we were smoking it, we'd only be 4 or 5 hours into the brisket smoke. And remember, brisket smokes take 12, 14 hours. We're slow roasting this. So I want to bring Paul in here a little bit to kind of, again, maybe share a little bit about your background specifically, so we can kind of prep people, and then dive into it just a little bit about what we're going to do with this dashboard. And I shouldn't really call it a dashboard, really what we're going to do with this subscription, and how we're really, in my opinion, going to take Energy Newsbeat to the next level. So set the stage.
No, definitely.
A little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I mean, I've certainly dabbled in real estate. At one point was a commercial real estate broker, helping companies with portfolio office leasing. Now, what I fundamentally do is I help companies solve problems, right? That was in that time, with office space, or just space in general, or investments. And that's really transitioned into digital products, like Mike mentioned. So, we're thinking about podcasts, we're thinking about websites, we're thinking about SaaS apps, web apps, whole 9 yards. And so really, as we think about web products, we also think about the environment that they contain, specifically with this user base in energy. It's important that we can continuously drive value for you, right? This is something that you can use as investment. kind of guidance, as well as, for your professional career and fundamentally like the decisions that you're making each day. And so wanted to share, some of the things that we're thinking about and really looking for feedback from the audience, because we really want to give you the pieces to have you really drive home. Fundamentally, it's really exciting, being able to do things that help people on a day-to-day basis, right? Make them smile, make them better, and make the world better too. On a completely separate note, on things that are
You forgot
better.
one key fact: make us some money. We're capitalists.
I mean, one thing that is better is also Texas barbecue. I just have to, say that I had some great brisket today at Terry's Blacks. I live in Austin. If you're ever looking for some good barbecue, it might be here. You might be too opinionated about it. That's okay. We can talk about that offline. One thing we can talk about online here and in the description is really this thought of a subscription to, what we have. So first thing is really just the website itself, right? Energy News Beat, giving the ability to have, unlimited access to the website. That's something at this point we want to continue doing. There are some websites out there that do restrict articles. That could be something we do for specific articles, that we'll talk about. But the general concept of the website, we do want to keep open and wide for you to share, discuss, and really stew on. There's a stew pun there. As
good.
he'll be proud. The other thing is we especially look at the podcast itself. We do have ads in this podcast for our livelihood and our then ability to help grow this platform and our employee base and our impact as well. And you help support that. So through listening to ads or potentially paying for a elimination of ads, would be advantageous really for you and your time. Although we do have, some great sponsors who are worth your time to listen to and, really understand if they could be a fit for you, right? We want to do this in your best interest, not drive for dollars, if you will. So those are some exciting things. But Mike, do you want to share more about the kind of thought of Stu doing a Substack or an article that would not be posted on the Substack?
Yeah. So, I think, rolling out this subscription is gonna be great. I think one thing Paul's given us clarity on is, and is really driving home is, okay, what does the experience feel like for a user? I mean, when you, if you're going to subscribe to something, what value do you get from it? And what's the experience like when you get that? Yeah. So what we really attempted to put together is an offer stack that I think does a really good job of giving everybody value. I mean, we're not, I think before we get into that, to answer the first question, we've got no idea what we're charging for this. This is something that we're actively working on. This is a little bit of a new concept. We're trying hey, this is where our mind's headed, kind of behind the scenes onto the process. So none of the stuff that we're about to cover here is like exactly what's going to be in the offer stack. Things are going to change. Things are obviously going to be different. It's partly why we want your feedback. If you hit the description below, you should be able to find a link to a HubSpot form that'll, get you in contact with us. So go ahead and fill that out. I'll mention this at the end of the podcast as well. I think the first thing that we're going to offer in this podcast, as Paul mentioned, is an article that is sort of what I would call kind of a premium Substack article. So the idea of Substack is, you can put stuff behind a paywall. You cannot put stuff behind a paywall. But the idea of a Substack, when you hear Substack, it's a newsletter. And so what Stu's going to do is he's going to write a custom newsletter article that's going to go behind the paywall. It's not going to be available on Substack. It's not going to be available without logging in and going to our little premium homepage that we're going to roll out. And that's going to be critical because, as you guys know, if you're your podcast listeners, that Stute is the best, in my opinion, in the world at taking complicated, diverse, and different interests and showing you how they weave together and how one impacts the other. Truly how a rice farmer in China affects a stock trader in New York. He truly understands and can make those connections. So that's one of that's a huge value add that you're going to get. So the next thing that I think you're going to see specifically is the dashboard, which I think is cool. Yeah. It's something that we've got multiple versions of. I think there are some people who have seen V1. If you go to dashboard.energynewsbeat.com, you can see V1. We've got available for previewing our V2. That's mainly just a UI version. We're working on a bunch of back-end stuff. And that's something that Paul has driven, really, the updating. He led kind of that original development on V1. He's worked really hard to get V2 spun up. And to be honest, V2 looks great. Where can people view that UI, Paul? Do they have to, is it that description below? Where can they see it?
Yeah, so let's just keep things simple, for our users, and reach out, within the description to get, access to that and see that, on our main page. We'll be updating that dashboard link Mike mentioned, so you are able to see that. You'll then just need to provide some credentials. So, for example, email for us to send you more information about it. But this would be the quickest way for you to get access. To see the description in this show, to then foresee and what we have cooking with a dashboard that's specific to energy, right, related to the news and data that you care about, to again help you with your day-to-day, whatever that might be in the industry space. So it's an exciting thing. One other exciting thing that we've really dreamed of and thought about is the thought of having access to kind of analysts or additional people to give you additional insight. Mike, I mean, you're probably the best to talk about this. What have we kind of thought about here?
So this is another thing that I'm hot on. I think maybe Paul's a little hesitant on, because I agree with some of his points, but if you're familiar at all with like real-time new what they call news squawk services or squawk services, you've got News Squawk, Rand Squawk is one of them. I think they've merged. You've got TT Trade. There's a few of them out there, but all of them, what they do is they offer an ability for you to message an analyst and then get a response back. I firmly believe at some point that will make it as part of the offer. Is that going to be a real time? You submit a question, 5 minutes later, you get my response? No. Now, is it going to be you email me a question, we get back to you within 48 hours? And if you pay for a really nice premium level, you get, the more you pay, the quicker response time? Yeah, that's probably what it's going to look like. But I definitely think giving access to not just me, but our entire analyst team, when you talk about Paul with real estate, Stu with geopolitics, and the other people in the Sandstone ecosystem, that's extremely valuable. And I think having something like that will definitely make it. Now, will it make it in this original rollout? I don't know. There's some details to work out. I think the most interesting part and the most interesting, I would say, tack on to this is something that, again, not to toot Paul's own horn, that he's pushed. He's talked about a bunch. I was originally against it, and now I'm for it. And it's the idea of, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, Paul. And
Are you going to say the advisory committee?
I'm going to say the advisory committee.
Yeah. Okay.
And I want you to talk specifically about that, because this has been your baby. You've pushed me on it, and I'm there. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so it's just continuing the thought of the analyst piece. So it's just to say, hey, like, what kind of augmented information and or resource could you as a professional, or you managing, running a team, or even a company, right? If you're executive CEO, could you have at your disposal in some sort of cadence, so that way you can be, a market leader, right? I've seen this in real estate. I've also seen this in general, topics related, and really the opportunity to have kind of a meeting of the minds, advisory committee of individuals who bring, unique perspective within the energy space, to have conversations about what, they are doing or what they're thinking could happen. Where I've seen this specifically used particularly, that I can actually talk about without any NDA conflicts, is, COVID, of which, there were some companies who did massive layoffs. Whether that's, the right, the wrong thing, we won't, get there. But I had the specific experience of having this sort of advisory committee that then was able to take a different lens to say, hey, we're going to cut executive pay 20%. We're going to, sunset, this group and do layoffs for kind of trimming, some operational inefficiencies because growth halted, and then also reduce general pay by 10%, right? Keeping morale relatively intact and stabilized, and then continue to grow, right? Great experience all around in comparison to others that then just have lost their job. Yes, severance, does mighty wonders to a point, right? There's still that, extreme emotional toll, if you will. And so that advisory committee was, in my opinion, able to, have a better trajectory than other organizations that might not have been aware of that potential or didn't know how to, piece that together, right? For different individuals that have different career experiences, this could be then an opportunity for, the executive who's been in the space 5 years versus the one that's in, 50, to then come back and say, hey, this is kind of some things to think about, and then, continue to give value both ways, right? So that sort of opportunity is something, we would love to explore, and have opinions on, both good, bad, and indifferent, to understand, how we can really take this community and bring it more alive, right? So you're listening to this. How can we feel this community more? How can we, see this community more? How can we interact as well? And those things can, again, really transcend the value that we bring to you beyond listening just to Michael Tanner's voice from an undisclosed location in Dallas, Texas. So the other thing we've been thinking about has been, adding contributing authors. So this would just be an opportunity to have more individuals come into kind of the fold, to allow, really just different sort of research and perspective to, again, give value. What this could look like, feel like, sound like, really kind of fleshing that out. This, at least in my personal opinion, wouldn't be something like you would need to, pay for to come into the fold, but this is certainly going to be a vetting process. This isn't everyone, gets a piece of paper and a pen to, write something on. This is a true value-driven, piece and an opportunity that we have for individuals who, want to share their, thought leadership sort of perspective. Really on that, Mike, I'll let you kind of finish the last point on, podcast and, any special pieces for, if there's any early releases or what that could maybe look like for people that, just can't get enough of us and want a little more.
I can't get enough of myself, so don't worry about that.
Perfect.
No,
You
man, I think, I definitely think you're gonna get an ad-free version of the podcast as well. We do a lot of, we're gonna probably start increasing the amount of ads you hear. Sandy's not cheap over there, so you gotta you got to make sure that the bills are paid. But no, definitely gonna do an ad-free version of the podcast. But no, I think we've done a good job, and hopefully you gonna get a better idea of where our mind's at with this subscription, what the value prop is. Again, hit the description below. There's gonna be a link there that allows you to get in contact with us. And we can walk you through everything, see what you want, see what you don't want, and ultimately get you beta access. Because again, this is rolling out. It's like a choo-choo train coming. Doo-doo! It's coming, and we want you on that train, baby, because it's coming. Any last words, Paul?
No, I think that's it. We'll have everything in the description, make it nice and easy. Again, would love feedback, positive and opinions, right? Because this is for you and the value that we do for you. We do this for you, and really want to hear, what that is, because there's certainly a unique opportunity here to give to our listeners, to allow them to do the things they want to do and learn the things that they were, unaware of.
Yeah, and if you just want to call and complain about Stu, I'm down. I'll give you my personal cell phone number to do that, but you got to first hit us in the description below, and then I'll give it. I'm just kidding.
Maybe we might release that as a paid feature. We'll see.
Maybe release that. So, all right, guys. Hey, we appreciate it. Paul, thanks for sticking around, and we'll get it going. Energy Newsbeat. Hurrah!
Till next time.